I cannot focus exclusively on how a Hindu is being treated in this country when this is not a country which is exclusively of Hindus, when there are other people also. So automatically I'm bound to ask this question. Not only do I want to know how you're treating me, I want to know whether you're treating me at least at par with others. If it's an exclusively a Hindu country full of only Hindus, then the question of discrimination between religions does not arise. But equality and discrimination become relevant when there are others and you see that they're being treated differently. So assume for a moment, and I've given this example before, that you were a student in a classroom and you realize that the teacher has the power to give corporal punishment, physical punishment to every student. But the teacher is constantly singling you out and slapping you on a regular basis. Your first question will be, why am I being slapped? Your second question will be, why am I the only person being slapped? Both these questions will arise. So at this point, both these questions have arisen in the Hindu mind with respect to the judicial treatment and the state's treatment of Hindus as a community and our institutions. Whenever you speak of state control of temples, your mind immediately says, I need the state for security, I need the state for maintenance, I need the state for crowd management, I need the state to handle administrative issues. And therefore, I'm happy to tolerate the presence of the state in the temple as long as they don't touch my religion, as long as they don't touch my religious affairs. According to me, there can't be a more self-defeating distinction. The institution's management and administration is in the hands of a different entity altogether, which is dying to call itself a secular entity, doesn't want to call itself a Hindu entity. And a fundamentally secular entity is holding the reins of the administration of your religious institutions. And you're operating under the naive belief that they will control only secular aspects which won't have an impact on religious aspects. How is that even possible? If the money is in their hands, the ability and the power to appoint people to different positions is in their hands, your security is in their hands, how do you hope to have the freedom only with respect to religious affairs? How is that even possible? Not possible. So to assume that as long as the state gives me the commitment that it will not interfere with religious aspects of an institution, I am happy and therefore my religion is secure, impossible. Because what you believe are the secular aspects are the ones that give you the power to invest in the society. Money, if it is secular, is the one that gives you the ability to invest in your community. So how can that essential aspect be in the hands of the government? The Jagannath Mandir in Puri is effectively run by 36 mathas. Each of the mathas are in the control of state government bureaucrats. Each of them saying, I don't have money, I don't have money. When the daily ritual of Jagannath Puri as a temple is based on contribution of all the 36 mathas, and over the years, every matha has progressively stopped its contribution to the daily ritual. Now, if this is the fate of big temples, then imagine what must be happening with chick temples. So in these big temples, citing lack of resources, which is the secular aspect which you've given to the government, he is saying, I can't give today's prasada, do whatever you want. I don't have the money to renovate. I don't have the money to maintain this library. I don't have the money to digitize this particular manuscript. I don't have the money to ensure that people do not come and do something that they're not supposed to in a temple in terms of security, employing CCTVs and whatnot. So this belief goes against dharmic principles because dharma and artha go hand in dharmic philosophy. For fulfillment of dharma, you need artha. And therefore, if artha is in the hands of the state, which is the Rajya, how on earth do you think you have the freedom to fulfill your dharma? Not possible. So let us break this wall completely, which says religious and secular are two different things. No, that is the Christian mentality, that is Christian philosophy, that is not Hindu philosophy. Hindu philosophy effectively says dharma and artha go hand in hand. We realize that you need Lakshmi to run even an institution that is dedicated to Saraswati. We are very clear about that. We don't need to be embarrassed about the fact that you need money to run a religious institution. Hinduism does not celebrate poverty. They come from all walks of life. All of them may not be equally placed as far as their status is concerned. Therefore, the one place that they come must act as a leveler so that everybody is treated as one here. And therefore, facilities must be provided. Where will that money come from? So when someone tells you, why should a religious institution have so much money? Please ignore that person as a secular Hindu idiot, because he doesn't know what he is talking about. Anyone who tells you that a religious institution must not have money because the moment it has money it is corrupt, then thank you, let the state not collect taxes. Because the moment you contribute something by way of tax to the state, well, it is bound to become corrupt. And the state is fundamentally corrupt according to me. Whether it has money or not, it doesn't make a difference. So therefore, first break that wall in your head. When you have a matha or a temple, why do Hindus contribute land to that particular temple or matha? What is the logic? Largely two reasons. One, that land acts as a source of revenue for the temple. That's one. Second, land translates to real estate, translates to Hindu presence. So that the land which is adjoining a temple or a matha must be owned by people who are followers of the sampradaya of that matha, so that they respect the tradition of that matha or temple. Otherwise, you will have slaughterhouses opened right outside the matha. If it happens to be a Shakta matha, then that's a different issue. It can have a slaughterhouse, no problem. But even then, it must be cut not in the halal fashion, but in the Hindu fashion, which is the Jhatka fashion. Therefore, even if it happens to be a Shakta tradition, I would be happy to give a meat house to someone who happens to be a practitioner of the Shakta tradition and to nobody else. So if the institution belongs to the subsect, then the institution must be run by people who are in that particular subsect. Why is this point important? The Supreme Court has come out with a verdict saying when you issue tenders for shops surrounding a certain temple, apparently non-Hindus can apply for that particular tender because it is a secular activity. What has it got to do with religion? You see how this distinction works? The moment you separate the secular from the religious in the context of a religious institution, you are creating an anomaly because everything about a religious institution is religious, 100%. Why? Because I am interested in using the resources of my community only for my community's good and nobody else is good. I am entitled to make that particular statement. I don't need to prove my secular credentials with respect to a religious institution. If I can't be religious with respect to a religious institution, where will I be religious? I don't understand. Look at the stupidity of this position. This is the one place where I'm allowed to wear my religion on my sleeve. That should be a position. What is so wrong about this? In 1954, in the Shirur Mutt judgment. Please read that judgment because it has huge consequences. And that is currently the subject of the Sabarimala judgment as well as petitions relating to freeing temples from state control. Now assume for a moment that you're trying to find the meaning of a term that is used in Quran. Will you refer to the Oxford Dictionary to understand its meaning? You will not. Then why do you want to use the Oxford Dictionary to understand the meaning of the word Sampradaya? What is the logic? So in that judgment, which is treated as the landmark judgment on what is the meaning of a religious denomination, not one reference to one Hindu commentary on what is the meaning of a Sampradaya. Because the court was trying to understand what is the role of a matha and what is the role of a mathadipati in a matha. And the question was whether a matha and its followers constitute a religious denomination within the meaning of Article 26 so that they can protect their independence in matters of running the institution as well as religious affairs. This was the question that the court was asking. During the entire analysis, not one whisper on what is the meaning of a matha. Whether a matha or a sampradaya as understood in dharma is the same as the manner in which a religious denomination is understood in Christianity. No such question is ever asked. Why? Because the constitution is written in English. And therefore, your go-to reference when you don't understand the meaning of a word or if you think it's ambiguous is an English dictionary. So understand the close nexus between bhasha and thinking, how they influence each other and what kind of outcomes it can lead to. So in that judgment, here's what the Supreme Court does. It says, Mathadipati is someone who is meant to be the custodian of that particular institution, and therefore, if an executive officer is appointed by the state to supersede the powers of the Mathadipati and take away his power to run that particular institution, it effectively translates to government takeover of the Matha, which is not permissible. To that extent, the court is right. Now, since that judgment was delivered in the context of a Matha, and this was in the context of the Hindu religious and charitable endowment legislations of then Madras Presidency, which included current day Karnataka, certain parts of Andhra Pradesh, and current day Tamil Nadu, the Tamil Nadu government said, since that judgment was delivered only in the context of a Matha, according to the Supreme Court, I can't take over a Matha, but I can take over a temple which is not connected to a Matha. So the logic of the state government is, it was a Matha which was the subject of the judgment, not a temple which is not connected to a Matha. And therefore, the freedom and independence that is available to a Matha is not available to those institutions that are not connected to a Matha. So today as it stands, as the law stands, these legislations strike a distinction between temples which are standalone temples and temples which are connected to Mathas. In the process, some have become second-grade institutions. Now ask yourself a simple question. If the issue is of autonomy of a religious institution, why should the logic be different between a Matha and a temple? What is the logic? If you believe that the state is fundamentally a secular entity under the current constitution, whether it is a Matha or a temple which is not connected to a Matha should not make a difference to the fact that a secular state has no business being inside that particular institution. That logic is uniformly applicable. That particular logic has not occurred to the Indian state for the last 60 years. So as a consequence, what has happened is, despite the Shirur Math judgment clearly saying that the state does not have the power to take over a religious institution permanently, all it can do is to rectify mismanagement and get out of that particular institution and give it back to the community. For the last 60 years, at least since 1959, despite a Supreme Court judgment, state governments have taken the position that the judgment does not apply to standalone temples. And therefore, you have executive officers who have been appointed across the board, with or without reasons, in temples across the board in all the southern states, at least in Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, Telangana. The point I'm trying to make is, even the Supreme Court's verdict has no value and its position has no value when it comes to the rights of the Hindu community. If the problem statement is that either the institution sometimes does not understand your position, or even if it happens to understand your position by some happy coincidence, the state is not willing to listen to the Supreme Court, then what are the options left to the Hindu community? I am posing this question to the community as a practicing lawyer, saying, what are the options available to you if even the word of the highest constitutional court of the land has no value in the eyes of state governments? So whenever we speak on this particular subject, we are constantly asked by members of the audience, what can we do as practicing Hindus? What is it that we can do? So I will give a slightly mischievous suggestion. Make sure that any government appointee in a religious institution, especially in a Hindu institution, is pushed to the limits of compliance, which is to say, he must constantly fear questions from the public. It must not be an easy ride for him under any circumstances. I am not asking members of the public to do anything that is illegal. I am merely saying, make sure that whatever he does is legal, and even if he has the slightest of intentions of making a departure, he must fear public reactions in terms of vocal reactions. I don't mean unconstitutional reactions. I'm saying vocal reactions. To the extent that anyone who is appointed as an executive officer to any Hindu institution must tell himself, this is my punishment posting. Because I can come and tell you a few things about what the Supreme Court has said and what are the legal differences and nuances and technicalities. But I think it's time to arm the public with solutions, practical solutions. I don't think it makes sense for anyone sitting in some remote part of the country to sit and worry about what will happen to all the money in Tirupati. You first worry about the temples in your street and then you think about Tirupati. Unless and until you're able to make an example out of state appointees in institutions which are in your proximity and in your vicinity, you are in no position to sit and talk about Tirupati. Look at the scale of the problem there. Jewels are gone, gold is lost, Tirupati's money is dipped into like state coffers for building of flyovers, for building of institutions which have got nothing to do with Tirupati, that particular temple. So it's almost as if that temple is running that city and certain parts of the state. So therefore my point is, work towards practical, workable, local solutions. The thing that you can do as a practicing Hindu is to take an active interest in the running of the affairs of your local temples first. Focus on them. Protect them. When a temple falls under disuse, it becomes public property and it is ripe and open for encroachment and illegal encroachment. And when you think of a temple, don't limit yourself only to that particular institution. Think of it as an ecosystem. Which means when you think of a temple, you should immediately ask, most temples have lands associated with them. What is the status of the land associated with this particular temple? And you will find that most of them are under encroachment and illegal occupation. In most cases, not by members of the community. At least if it's members of the community, then you can still kind of hope to regularize it, take some rent. But if it's members of some other community, secularism will immediately come in the way. And you will not be able to take action.
When you say that this temple does not allow women and it has a problem with women, it is based on misogyny, it's based on patriarchy, I want to ask each of these people, what do you know about the temple before you have made that comment? What have you read before you have made that comment? Are you saying that you know better than centuries of people who have actually worshipped at the temple and who have practiced that particular faith? Unless and until you have a specific position, kindly don't make yourself the representative of the entire female community. You're not. Second, you can't speak on behalf of believers, you can't speak on behalf of the deity, you can't speak on behalf of the temple. To put it in the language of Game of Thrones, you know nothing, Jon Snow.
So let me address your question first, because I think that's the more central question. And then I'll go to his question on civilization duty, because that is more important. Because let me address the theoretical aspect of it before I jump into its application to a specific circumstance. Right? One, am I couching a bigoted idea through the use of the phrase civilizational identity? Let's address the most uncomfortable question. Right? Are you trying to use the word civilization to run away from what is essentially perhaps a fundamentalist, religiously motivated position? Let's address that. That's the question, right? Why are we beating around the bush? We should have asked that, right? So, you don't have to be. This is a civil question even otherwise. Frankly, this would still be a perfectly civil question according to me, and I'm neither right nor left. My position is different. As far as I'm concerned, that's perfectly. Believe that a certain position reeks of hypocrisy. Ask the question, but keep the tone civil. Civility is in the tone, not in the content of the question. So let's come to the question. Okay? So, I am not Sadhguru. I know how to handle questions. Not that he doesn't, but I think I know. Okay? So when somebody says this and says, no, I am this intellectual, the rules of the society don't apply to me, I will sit in some remote corner of an academic campus, enjoying the benefits of the state and calling for its destruction because I'm a global citizen. Give up the benefits of the state. Give up the benefit of the state and beg for food the way the true seeker was expected to before. Bhiksha mango, then ask for it. Okay? But on the one hand, you constantly want entitlements, freedoms, concessions, raise in this, raise in that from the state, and you're still attacking the state. Jis thali mein khaya, usi mein chhed kiya.
Guess who's back?
My point is, everything that relates to Islam necessarily comes from a book and commentaries which do not originate in India. Okay. Would that be a correct statement to make?
You're absolutely wrong.
Oh, please tell me.
You don't know.
Sahih al-Bukhari was authored in India.
Do you know Fatwa Alamgiri?
Go ahead,
Fatwa Alamgiri?
Oh, so you use Fatwa Alamgiri to actually...
Listen to me. Where was Fatwa Alamgiri written?
No. The question is, when you issue a fatwa, do you use the Quran or what are you using?
Are you debating with me or an anchor?
I am
asking you want to debate with me? I'll answer.
I am asking you a straightforward question.
I am answering you in a straightforward way. Please listen to me. You have.
Should I rephrase the question for you to understand it better?
I understood where you're coming from.
Answer, please.
Do you believe that the Islamic law is only Quran and Sunnah? No. You're absolutely wrong.
Go ahead, please explain.
No, it is not.
Right.
It is Quran, it is Sunnah,
Right.
it is the judicial or the fatwas given.
Hadith.
It is no, Sunnah is Hadith only.
Hadith only.
Then
That's
you
the
have
tradition.
schools of thought.
Right.
Hanafi, Shafi'i, Maliki, Fiqh.
Right.
Then you have Fatwa Alamgiri. There are so many books.
So these schools of thought, what is the basis of the schools of thought? Is the simple question.
every religion, every school of thought.
Right.
Basically,
Has the audience
Muslim-
understood the question? Okay, great.
No, listen.
Yes, please.
Fantastic.
Right.
Majority of Indian Muslims are Hanafis.
Okay,
We follow Fatwa Alamgiri.
okay,
And that protection, where it comes from? Article 26,
okay.
isn't it?
And what is the basis of Fatwa Alamgiri?
Fatwa Alamgiri is the opinion of the Islamic scholars who were born in India,
Based on what?
based on Quran and Sunnah.
Thank
and
you.
Whenever I'm angry, my mother tongue will immediately come to my tongue. Or the language that I use more often, which is Delhi's lingo, will immediately come. Right? What does it tell you? That notwithstanding all the external stimulus that is put on human behavior, nature is nature. Training is training. Genetics is genetics to a significant extent. Conditioning and surroundings also have an impact on genetics, but it will automatically come to you, which means policies which are completely at loggerheads with the native pulse of this land will never find acceptance, and they will never be implemented. Let me give you a simple example. The state's role in alcohol production is a relatively new phenomenon because traditionally almost every Indian home used to brew its own alcohol without any state interference. Ganja today has acquired a negative status. Just try and read the Indian Drug Commission report of 1893-1894 written by the British. They wanted to ask themselves, can we bring in a law to stop the consumption of this because it is an intoxicant? They arrived at the conclusion that this is so native to this country, it is so ingrained in its cultural practices, and it is nowhere comparable to alcohol or anything else, that let's not interfere with it. That was the Britishers' decision with respect to ganja. When was it banned in India for the first time? 1985, because of a global movement. And the global movement has come a full circle, where close to 36 states in America have legalized ganja. And now we are wondering, oh, master ने अब तो उल्टा कर दिया, मैं क्या करूं? उसने तो पलटी मार दी. मेरी सेंस ऑफ ओरिजिनलिटी